Hello and welcome back everybody, this is Mystic Games. Today we're going to be doing a Dice Folks game review. Before we jump into it, I just want to give credit where credit is due. This game was developed by Leap Game Studios and Tiny Ghoul, and it was published by Good Shepherd Entertainment. So good on those folks. They deserve all the credit for the game that they made. What is Dice Folks? For those who haven't played the Monster Tamer roguelike with dice mechanics, that's simply what it is. The focus is on battles, upgrades, and progression through stages. Monsters are in short supply for each run, with each run offering 3 per biome, but you can only choose 1. I would recommend this game for any fans of like dice games, roguelikes, or turn-based combat. It's a bonus if you like monster catching, but it's not the focus, honestly, of the game. The focus is more building a strong team. So let's jump right into it. We're going to talk gameplay. You have an overworld and then a combat map. Essentially a combat stage within the map. We'll start with the overworld and then we'll talk more about combat later. So I'm going to click right here on continue just so you guys can see the overworld map for an example. So your character's, walking, you can pick wherever you can go. Right now I have 4 options that you guys can see. Upon going here, I get this item. I click on it, I accept it, I just take it, there's no reason not to. And then something else will open up. So the path goes as where you click, you have to do the event, or you have to do the battle, and then you can continue. Each point unlocks like additional point as you go, as you just saw. Events tend to be quite simple, like you click on the present, you get a thing. You click on the brood berries, you get berries, whether they increase some sort of stat generally. There's nothing really intricate once you learn the game about each spot, once you know what it is. There are 3 Chimera Shrines on the level as well. The Chimera Shrines are the ones with the sparkly stars shooting out of them. Once you get to a Chimera Shrine, a Chimera will spawn, and you will be able to pick the Chimera. So you have 3 shrines in the bottom. It says there are 3 undiscovered shrines left. It is possible to recruit a Chimera in one of them only once per biome. So I can look at this Chimera. If I like it, I can immediately pick it. If I do so, these 2 other shrines will become golden berries, essentially, healing berries generally. So sometimes it is worth it to pick the first shrine, just to get the healing and the gold, if that's how you want to play. There's different strategies you can use here. It's very intricate in that sense. Very cool system, but you can only pick 1 Chimera per level, per map essentially, and then you continue. So once you clear the map and you've found the boss, you can either challenge the boss or finish clearing the rest of the map. So say the boss is right here, for example. I do this fight, the boss is right here. I can immediately go to this boss without continuing anywhere else along this map, or I can fight the boss. If I beat the boss, I go to the next map, all this stuff gets lost. I don't get any of the benefits that I would have gained. That's up to you. If you're doing a speed run, obviously you can do that kind of stuff. I like personally to clear the full map, but that's also a preference that you have in this game that you can make. You essentially will then repeat this process 2 more times, with varying events and RNG playing a factor. Although some of the events per stage are the same, like you always get a fruit, for example, on the 2nd stage. The fruit that you have access to might change per run, so you're never guaranteed the same actual items from the event, but the event will be the same. So that does add a level of RNG to the overworld map. This will require making different selections than you might regularly like to make. Sometimes you will run into things that just you may not like to use and may make you change your strategy. For some people that may feel good, for some it may feel bad. That being said, we're going to hop into combat. So for combat, you would click on a battle token, or a battle part on the map, and you use Chimera to combat. So these are my Chimera. They all have their abilities. You can scroll over them to see. As along with the enemy Chimera that are over here. I'm on the left, they are on the right. You're given dice depending on your talisman choice, and each dice has 6 sides. I'm slowly just rotating over so you guys can see them. Different dice do different things. As you learn the game, you'll learn what each dice and action means on the dice. I will argue that that's one of the things I don't feel like the game does a very good job on in combat initially, but as you learn the game, you'll be like, oh, I know exactly what all this means. Every turn the dice are rolled. So if I attack, we'll just go at this guy just because. I hit him once. I can rotate, I can idle. I'm not going to do either. I'm going to let him hit me. I got my bonus effect there. He hit again. I then have to rotate, and I have to purify. Once you use up all enemy dice, you may continue the battle phase. So I can either use my dice, or I can end turn. I'm playing on special mode, so I can actually reroll all dice. And I'm going to reroll mine. I'll use strength on him. Now, he permanently gets a strength buff, which means I hit for more damage every turn. I'm not going to rotate. It's unnecessary. End turn. Essentially, that's the combat loop. So you always have to use enemy dice, but you don't have to use yours. You can use this to your advantage to ensure that your dice are used, and you might be able to clear the enemy without using their dice, which is obviously beneficial. That being said, that's the general loop of combat. Outside events, like, you can enhance your dice, add them so these won't be idle anymore. Here are these 4 slots, for example, and that will make your team stronger overall. You have a leader slot, which has the crown, and you have 2 backline slots, I like to call them. I also call them support slots. You can move your team around, obviously, using the rotation dice here. Different rotation, this is random. It will cause your team to move. And a lot of the strategy is about moving your people around, or moving your chimeras around the combat map here, and then trying to take the least amount of damage as possible. A lot of the times, there's different ways you can build. We're not going to get too much into that because this is more of a review than, you know, gameplay help or mechanics here. But you can build your team around not moving. You could do support and always have this guy in front, or you could, you know, do a team that requires rotation. It really depends on what chimera you roll. The game changes based on that, and I think that is important to list here in the review. Overall, that's the goal, is to KO the enemy team, and then once you've KO'd the enemy team, you go back to the world map, and you continue the process that we already have been discussing. Once you've played this a bit, you'll end up unlocking additional game modes, which is what I'm doing right now. It's a special mode where I start with a special chimera. Normally you would have 3 of these Iroids, but I am playing a special mode, which gives me a special chimera to start. These modes all have different rules. There's trial mode and then special mode. Trial mode has 11 tiers, and they essentially build. So if you do tier 1, you beat it, then you unlock tier 2. And once you're playing tier 2, you still get the negatives and the benefits of tier 1, but you just build on top of them like a block. In special mode, you get one special item, like I get a special chimera here, and that's kind of the game mode, and then you try to win that way. So the game does have additional modes as you do more and you beat more, so you can play in different ways. Next, we're going to talk game length. I think game length is pretty good for each run. Each run, again, requires you completing the multiple maps. It varies on party compositions, the bonus that you acquire, and how much of the map you clear. You do have a lot of control over the actual speed of how you go. But there's also a level of course, RNG in this. Each run will feel different from the last in some ways, depending on your talisman a lot of the time. All that being taken into consideration, each run will generally probably run you anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, but you can do much lower. If you just straight boss rush, that is a possibility, and then you're looking at probably anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes, I'd say. We're going to get into the next thing, and that's sound. Simply put, I have some of the sound right now. The background music is nice. I think it suits the game. I think the battle music when you go into combat suits the game. All in-game sounds are generally pretty simple, but very soothing. Like this is a very soothing background sound, and when you go into combat, it's more amped. I think they're all fine. The game does have in the options a master volume, music volume, and effects volume that you can use to change. It also has your resolution, full screen, VSync, language, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that a little bit more in graphics. But that's pretty much your sound. Overall, solid sound. It's a very, as you guys can see, it's a very simple game, but that doesn't mean the sound isn't good. For graphics, you guys saw some of the in-game graphics here. You have your game art, which is like your in-game art, and then you have your compendium art. I like both designs. The fact that you can get shiny monsters is also really cool. A lot of games like to do that these days. I do appreciate the shinies. The compendium has all the discovered chimera in it that you've seen, and it will also show their tablet style. So I'll click on this to show you guys what I'm talking about. As you guys go over, you can see that I've found most of the chimera at this point. I've actually seen these before, but I haven't been able to pick them. I know what they do. I just never chose them. So for example, you click on, we'll click on our Kitsuna here. This is the, what I like to call like the tablet art of the graphics that they do, and then you have the in-game combat art. It also does a nice little thing where it shows your player comparatively to the chimera, and gives you a little bit of story here. Overall, I like the art style. It kind of reminds me of those early Pokemon games when I was a kid, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think people really dwell on having like super D graphics. I just think gameplay really matters first. In the end of it, and the stylization of a game can really suit the game, and I think this game does a good job with its stylization. I will say the biggest issue I think with the game and its art is the map icons and dice icons and the explanation behind them. I think initially as a new player that's hard to understand, and I think that is a graphical problem in a sense. Other than that, I think it's pretty solid. Next we're going to talk immersion. So this is something that I like to discuss in every game. And again, this is a little bit different than an immersion of like a first-person shooter or a game like Elden Ring, obviously. You're not playing the character. So when you're talking about immersiveness in the world here, I like to think about it in the case of how the lore is just demonstrated and if it's interesting. And the way they do it here is they have like an intro and an outro, and then it's done through archives. And when it comes to the lore, the way it's presented, I feel like it is not very strong. But when it comes as like a gameplay immersion, and we're talking about gameplay versus feeling like, am I part of the world? I think the gameplay is much stronger than the immersion of the story. When it comes to me as a player enjoying every run, I generally do. Every time I do a new run, I generally do enjoy the run. It feels different, it feels good. I can do certain strategies that I like to do over and over again. I can try new things if I'm doing different kinds of runs. So I know what I'm kind of getting into as I play the game, and I can kind of set it up for what mood I'm in. Getting the right gear and then getting the perfect chimera for like each run can be super fun and challenging. And I think myself, I've done like first chimera challenges essentially every time. If you guys watch my other videos, which I highly recommend if you're interested in this game, I've done runs and I did like essentially all the first chimera were my choice. I didn't go to any other shrines. There's different ways you can play, and I think that allows you to immerse yourself in different ways. It's kind of like Pokemon Nuzlocke in a sense. Anyways, I do think it's enjoyable, and you can quit whenever you want. As you guys see, I can just leave a game and then I can hit continue and go right back in, which is really cool. I like when games allow that. That being said, let's go on to DLC. This game does have DLC. The DLC for this game is the Wills DLC, which essentially adds an additional talisman, which is a different choice or style of run. and it adds new Chimera specifically for that talisman. I think the DLC is very solid if you enjoy the base game, and I think the talisman out of all the talismans is actually really, really fun. I don't think it's broken. I actually think I actually like one from the base game more. I think it's actually stronger, but I do think it's a very fun talisman to play with, and it brings just a whole new style and diversity to the game. So I think that's worth mentioning on DLC. The price of the game is not bad. The game is not expensive. It runs for around $14.99 US, and the DLC is $6.99 US. You can find these on sale on Steam for cheaper during, events. That being said, it's worth the price point. I can see myself getting probably another at least 40 hours, if not more, out of this game, in clearing pretty much everything if I choose to. My final thoughts on the game. So we're going to come to our final verdict, give it like a rating here. So when we come to the end of this, I would say my final thoughts is that it's a fantastic game, and although it does have some minor weaknesses with the in-game immersion when it comes to the story, and a little bit of a learning curve, I would say, for map exploration, I think the game is a solid 4 out of 5. I think it's worth a buy, for sure. Again, it depends on your style of games and what you like, but I would highly recommend this game. It's worth a shot. I would like to see more people play it, and I would like to hear people's thoughts on it. So I hope this helps anyone that's trying to make a decision on buying this. I don't want to make these too long, these reviews. I try to keep them down to like 20 minutes if I can. So we're going to end it there. I appreciate you guys all checking it out. This has been Mystic Games. Like, subscribe if you guys enjoy, and keep on catching those monsters. I'll see you in the next one. Later, guys.